ready?
This is Nicole. Welcome to Beyond the Grind.
Let's talk about it. I was thinking about this quote that I saw.
Okay.
And I just wanted to get your take on it because it meant like so many different things to me when I read it. So the quote said, "Better the bird that you have in hand than two birds in the bush." What does that mean to you?
Almost like I guess it's similar to the quote, like the grass is greener. Well, you think the grass is greener on the other side, but they both take to keep it green, to fertilize it.
Yeah, okay. Right.
So it's almost like it's better what you already have than to risk it on the possibility of something else. I don't know. That's how I would take it.
Yeah, well, that was my thoughts too. But then I started going to different measures in my mind. So I started thinking about it from a real estate perspective.
Okay.
And it kind of flipped the quote to me because, sometimes you think you have a deal all looped up and you think this is the best deal that you could have gotten.
Exactly.
And then sometimes it's things outside of your control that happen and then the deal fall through. And then another deal comes along that's more money, better terms, faster settlement time frame, all the bells and whistles.
Yeah.
So then I thought about it like that. But then I also thought about it on the parameter where you have an opportunity that's presenting itself and it's in your hand with all of your grasp. And you're like, yes, this is what I want. And then it's times that you take that. And then right behind it, another opportunity came that's better. So then I started thinking, did you go the way you were supposed to go, or did you leave two birds in the bush that could have been in a better situation?
I think it's subjective because both of them have outcomes, right? But it's almost like it's like you're playing Russian roulette, right? With the possibility of two different fates or whatever.
Right.
Because you technically don't know what the outcome of the other one will be. You can only speculate in hindsight because most times going in situations, you don't have the foreknowledge, because if you did, you would automatically say, well, this is better. Like, I have an opportunity to get more. And a lot of times we don't realize that until we sit back and hindsight happens or whatever. So I feel like it's subjective based off of did the first outcome not turn out? Because you normally don't think about you normally don't think about anything else if your first one's fine and everything turns out. I don't know. That's just my perspective.
No, yeah, I mean, I respect the perspective, but then on the other side, again, the quote says, "Better the bird that's in your hand than the two birds that are in the bush."
But the quote is saying better. So they're saying what you have is better than that.
Right. So I'm challenging this quote.
But why? Because then it goes back to also as a sense of contentment, right? Because you could get two, which is more, but is it quality?
Well,
so isn't it sometimes, quality?
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Because, okay, so for hunting's sake, which I know you don't hunt. I don't either, but I'm thinking.
But I get the idea of hunting. Go ahead.
So we have this bird that's in our hand.
Okay.
That could just be a small bird. But there's two more in the bush. One of them could be bigger to ultimately feed your whole family.
Okay.
But once you caught this one, you said, you know what? I'm going home. And you left, which could have been, say, for example, we have a pigeon.
Yeah.
You left a turkey. And then, you know what? You left another turkey in the bush.
You know what's so crazy? I was going to flip that to challenge your thought. So I was going to say, what if what is in your hand, a turkey, like a 20-pound turkey, right? But what's in the bush is pigeons. You think pigeons are like nasty birds. like, so just because it's more, it goes back to quality. And like I said, you sometimes don't realize what you missed out on until the first thing doesn't work out. Just think about it in a sense of, let's go to relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you went to hunting. Here's my thing for relationships. So let's say you're in a relationship with a person who is hitting everything. You're so content. You're good, right?
Right.
You don't even think of what could be better because you're so focused on what you have in your hands.
Right.
That you don't know that there could be other options, and neither do you care about it until this is no longer satisfying you.
Yes.
So then I feel like, like I said, it preaches to contentment in addition to only in hindsight, but without you taking both paths, you will only speculate and almost romanticize what it could have been because you don't know because you didn't take that path.
So what about those that, now let's go to a music perspective.
Okay.
Because I was watching all these different music
shows.
Look
at you taking me out of all my perspectives.
That's
Hunting,
right. That's
music.
Right.
All right, we got.
Because it's, when you read these things and you interpret them, most people just read a quote and say, oh, it's a good quote. But I go deep inside of the quote. I try to think about the writer of the quote. Were they thinking the way that, I was thinking? Because I saw it on both sides as well. And then I think from a music perspective, say you got the greatest gift in the world of singing. And the first record deal that comes to you, you say, you know what? I'm taking it.
Okay.
But then you signed away everything.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, there was 2 other opportunities that were on its way, but you just jumped at the first thing.
Okay. I'm going to speak to that. So
let's talk about it.
What is the motive behind signing the first thing? God talks about be anxious for nothing, but in everything with prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known, right? So sometimes we jump at opportunities
She preaching.
Because we're anxious. So it's not even because the opportunity was the best for us. We're just so impatient that we don't want to just pause and wait to see what happens. So I do feel as though there's a difference in your motive and why you're taking your first, like let's go back to the original thing of the bird.
Right.
Okay, is my motive for keeping this bird in my hand out of desperation, like is it really the best one, or am I settling because of proximity? Because that's a lot of times we make our decisions in life based off of proximity rather than what is for us. It's only because within my proximity this was available and this was the best of that, versus saying I don't care about proximity, I'm just going to wait for the best because this is what I deserve. So when it comes to that analogy, even when you talk about the music thing, you jumped with anxiousness. So you didn't wait out to see what the best deal was because you were so desperate for that. And listen here, I don't believe in doing anything in desperation, because then you're going to compromise, not even compromise, you're going to settle. Right. To me, settling is like, it's too many, you gave too much more than what you received of your values, and you made too many negotiations. I don't care. I can compromise, but I'm not settling. And we settle oftentimes for what's in our hand because we're so anxious and impatient.
So you agree with, this is not.
I can argue both sides.
Right.
Because like I said, and then I can argue the side of contentment.
Right.
I wouldn't even know about, like, it's like when we talked about driving, right? You said you don't look in your rearview mirror. You don't look your peripheral. You don't care about none of that, right? Nope. You looking to
the windshield.
Focus, right?
What's the biggest thing?
Like I get like my peripheral, I can see what's around me, but I'm also not concerned about over there. I'll take it from this vantage point. All right, so I'm signed to this brokerage, but I get multiple calls of other brokers like, hey, just take this meeting.
Right.
I don't want to. I don't want to waste your time and my time because I'm content. I don't care. Like, this fits. This works for me. This is where God placed me. This is where I want to be. So I don't necessarily care about what splits and what other bells and whistles you're trying to like whistle at me like, woo. I'm not even looking at what you're dangling. Like, I'm content. So I don't care about the 2 birds, because for all I know, those birds could have an expiration date. They could be sick.
Right. I agree with that.
You don't know that. That's why I'm a big person on quality, not quantity. Even with a lot of times you find like couples, they'll celebrate, or you'll hear like, oh, my parents were together for like 50 years. Okay, but was it a healthy 50? Like, I'm not saying don't celebrate time together and the choices of us choosing each other, but what if like 49 years 49 of those years, they were like busting each other in the head. What are we celebrating? Quantity?
Well,
I'm not doing that.
So it goes to the philosophy that who knows? Maybe that person just chose what was first.
Mm-hmm.
Because even with the broker scenario you had, you were to another broker's before.
Mm-hmm.
That was the bird in the hand. You had to experience that.
I was desperate.
Right. So a lot of times when you get the bird in the hand, you think, okay, I got something now.
Mm-hmm.
And once you have it in hand, you realize, darn, I just settled for this pigeon.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a turkey right back there.
But then it goes back to what I said. What was my motive based off of? Desperation. Like, oh, you gotta, you get your license. You gotta hang your license up somewhere, right?
Right.
Within a certain period of time. So it's like, all right, well, it's desperation and proximity. It was like, well, I did school here, so
right.
I might as well do it here. It wasn't because I actually waited, and if I would have prayed, because your brokerage has been open for a while, if I would have waited and prayed and really just said, you know what, I know what I could bring. I know I'm new, whatever, but I know what I can bring to the table. Let me wait. I could have been nurtured a whole boatload time ago, and my career possibly could have been different.
Mm-hmm.
But I made a decision based off of what? Proximity and desperation of an urgency versus really assessing, hey, Nicole, is this what you really want? And I do feel though in like each person's life, you can identify with doing that, right?
Right, yep.
Settling on what's here because it's around. But like I said, the other side of the coin is I also am a person on contentment. Right. So it's almost coveting. Those two birds could have been meant for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that was never meant to be mine. Like that, they were never meant to be mine. God gave me this, and am I taking care of this? Where much is given, much is required. So yes. Am I taking care of what I have, and am I focused on that? Because who knows, I could have a baby chick, and I think it's like gonna be like a baby pigeon, and then as I'm growing and nurturing it and taking care of it, it happens to be an ostrich.
Darn.
Isn't that the biggest bird?
See,
that's what I'm saying.
Had you not took the bird that was in the hand, there were some experiences that you would have missed out on. And a lot of times, had you not taken that step, you wouldn't have known how good the other birds in the bush could be, or how bad they could be, or what that whole situation could look like. But you had to go through this first. Like you was just talking about people that say, oh, my parents have been married for 50 years. And then you said, was it healthy?
Yeah, was it quality?
Right. So then you see like, some of those people that were together that long, and then the next thing you know, they're 65 and single.
Or they're 65 and just hate each other.
And there you go.
But you know what I will say also, if you take your statement, the quote that you found, it actually goes with a couple podcast episodes ago. We conversed about a topic, and I had an opposite of an opposing opinion to what your stance was, and I was like 10 toes down, like 10 toes in, right? And I'm bringing this up to say that in life sometimes, right, we think we make the right decisions, we think we know it,
right,
but we never come back to humble ourselves to say, but I was wrong.
Yes.
So I realized I had to go through a certain experience, going back to what you said, to make me go like, oh wow, like the way that I was viewing something, like, that was wrong. Like, Nicole, you were wrong. So I also think in life, when you say you sometimes you have to go through this situation before you get to that.
Yes.
I think the one thing that we never really see a lot of people go back to is to humble themselves and be like, yo, I was wrong.
Right.
Like going through all of that, I realized the errors in my way. And I realized that the way that I was looking at it and the vantage point that I had through it was so off that I'm gonna come back to the person and be like, I'm wrong. Like,
see, that means a lot, like to me, because, I talk about it consistently as well. I think that as you heard today, like, I called my uncle and I think that people that help enlighten you to something that you may have not saw in yourself, or people that helped you grow, I think that it's very important that you come back to them and say thank you. And I know before we was talking about it, and I heard on a on one of my learning sessions, the individual was saying that he actually writes and mails letters to the people. Even though he can pick up the phone and call them, he writes and mails letters to them saying, look, this is what I was going through in this time period. I wanted to just say thank you. And I think that's so important because it goes to show the character of that person. And then I was thinking on the other side of things where it's times where you may need help again. And the person that helped you get through it mentally, physically, financially, whatever it may have been, you haven't said thank you the first time.
Yeah. And it's like you're tapping into a source that you never even acknowledge. But in addition to the thank you, what I don't think that we do often is go back to say I'm sorry.
Yes.
We never humble ourselves and be like, yo, I wasn't right during this time. And the way that I was only responding to you from my vantage point of how, like, the reality and my perceptions of what I took from it, that I feel like that shows a deep growth and a humbleness that you have in the progression of where you want your life to take you, and going back to acknowledge your wrongs, and not just acknowledge it mentally, but actually go to your, like, humble yourself. You have to, like, almost be like, like in the Planet of the Apes where
you always got the movies
where Caesar made Koba like go like this. Like, we never go back to basically put our hand so we can do that and be like, I'm sorry. Like, the way I viewed it and the way I responded to you was completely wrong. It was selfish. It was this, it was that. And you know what? I learned this. And that, to me, builds character. That also allows a person to know that situation that you experienced with them wasn't in vain, and that there was some type of growth that you walked away, even if it's for you not to go back to that situation. Like, for me, I know it's almost like, how, like, sometimes you go through bad experiences and you want to erase it. You're like, oh God, that ain't never happened. And it's like, no, like, honestly, there's times where I'm like, I wish I could tell the person thank you.
Appreciate that moment.
Appreciate. Thank you. Thank you for your rejection. Thank you for the way you treated me. Thank you for pointing out to me that
you agree with my point.
Now,
so for the rejection part, it's good that you didn't take the bird that was in the hand at that time.
No, I'm not agreeing to that point. I said,
now you threw a rock, like my brother used to say, you threw a rock in the bush earlier and thought I was going to jump out. I threw one back at you.
You did. So now we're going to be playing tall.
That's right.
But no, what I was going to say was, I think that type of quote, right? There's no right or wrong.
Right.
Sometimes in life, there is no this or that, because it can be forever changing. I bet you could take that one quote, right?
Yes.
And put it in several situations in your life that you experienced, and you would have done either going after the two birds, or you would have been content with the one you have. Like, you would have been on both vantage points, because I feel like that's a evolving quote where it's no one answer that fits. It's not one size fits all or fits most.
So here's my question.
Okay.
About what you was just saying. My rather poignant question.
Ooh, go ahead, Webster.
That's right. Why do you think it's so hard for people to say sorry?
Pride and fear. Because you know why? For me, sorry is not words. Sorry is change behavior. So I'm very deep in the house. Like, don't keep saying sorry for the same thing, because a true sorry is change behavior.
Right.
Like, to me, the sorry is just a verbal saying. The receipt of your sorry is you not doing that again. Like,
well, what's the checklist for a change behavior?
So, an example of, like, the change behavior in the apology, one of my children, like, they always make a comment of, like, it looks like you have a baby in your belly. And
that ain't right.
Right. And I'm like, stop saying that. Like, that's rude. Okay, mommy may be bloated. You like, but don't say that because that's not. I express like people don't think that that's a compliment. Right. I'm like, why? And I'm like, because basically you're saying that person is fluffy. And and I was like, so it can almost be offensive in growing. Like, I don't care that you say it to me, but you don't want to say that to just people. Let somebody, have to. So the example I'm giving is, if I told you that, right, and I expressed the whys, because I try to give whys, behind it, and you do it again, then your first sorry, because when they thought they hurt my feelings, it was like, I'm sorry. And I'm like, oh, no, you don't have to apologize. Right. I'm not offended, but I mean, I think it's rude, and it's like, oh, let me get a couple more crunches or something. But no, it's like, if you're truly sorry, then why do you repeat the same behavior that I already said was, affecting me? Right. Like that to me, a true sorry is changed behavior. It's almost like a person who may be a repeat offender cheater. And it's like, I'm so sorry, baby. I didn't mean to hurt you. And it's like, all right, first time. Okay, maybe you didn't know the ramifications. Lies. Maybe you didn't understand.
Look at you attacking the men.
No, I said person. I changed it to person. Maybe you didn't understand like the weight that holds and all of that. And you're like, I'm sorry. And it's like, all right. But then you do it again and again.
So does this go down? Does this look? You added again and again. Yeah. So that was 3 or 4 again.
That's what I'm saying. Well, because some situations are like that. So are you sorry for getting caught? Or are you sorry because of the pain you're causing me?
So does this go down the line of, what if that man watched his mother do that to men?
Okay, so I'm a person where
we talked about the cake philosophy.
We did, right?
Where whatever you put in that cake is, if you put it in a dented pan, for those who missed the episode, every cake thereafter is going to come out with a dent on it. So if he consistently watched his mother,
then change the pan. So
you can't change your mom.
You can't change your mom. Okay. So you're calling the mom the pan and the cake that she produces. However, right? What I will say is you can cut those dents to make it perfect. So you can.
Well, there's no such thing as perfection.
Okay. Oh, good one. Caught me on my words. So you don't have to keep those same dimples and bruises, is what I'm saying.
Yes.
We can make a conscious decision. Like, I'm a person where you don't choose the situations and the environment in which you're born into. Like we don't have that type of control, right? So let's say I'm born into, let's say I was born into a situation where my mom and dad didn't take care of me, right? And I was like in a foster care, right? And the foster family did not, sew into me and just told me every horrible thing about me, right? I can't then maintain, let's say I'm 40 now, right? I can't keep saying, well, my mom and dad left me in my foster family. I at some point have to make a choice to be like, yeah, this was my situations that I didn't have control over, but I had control over the way I responded.
I agree with that.
Yeah, for me, I had trauma, right, growing up. Not like my mom and dad, but I don't want to say growing up, but in life, you experience certain things, right?
Right.
So if I literally based and blamed and took no accountability for any of my actions because everything is premised on, oh, this happened to me, I was put into a dented pan, right? Then that means that I never have to change, because it's like, this is just given. No. That means you're quitting.
Yeah, right. Well, I understand that part too. I get what you're saying with that. Did we talk about the grad school class that I had where one side was defending a sex offender that murdered somebody? It kind of ties into this.
Okay.
Because historically, whatever your parents and all those people before you, just like if you go for life insurance, like one of the primary questions they ask you on life insurance is what?
Like your history.
Yeah, and then one of the primary questions behind your history is, did anybody in your family commit suicide?
Yeah.
And it matters.
Because but I have a question. Do you think that's systematic, where they're making us, like, you know how they almost say diabetes? Oh, that's hereditary.
Right.
Is it hereditary? Is it in my blood, or is it in my habits? Is that what we've passed down? Because think about it, our like,
I understand that. Yes.
So a lot of times they make us think that it's so much in our DNA, where let's just say, right, like, this person had diabetes and high cholesterol, this person had it, and now you get to me, I would have to make a choice to decide not to eat anything like this. Mm-hmm. So I won't be diabetic. So I won't have high cholesterol.
So do you think they base that off of, because history matters?
It does matter.
And it shows, and I can't think of an example off top, but I can just envision in my mind, like, somebody that had a rare skin disorder, mm-hmm. and then their kid had it, mm-hmm. but then they had another kid, and that kid didn't have it. Mm-hmm. So, like, history does matter, and because history matters, it's not just something that can be erased very quickly.
It shouldn't, because I'm not saying history doesn't matter. I'm saying history shouldn't define.
No, I agree with that.
So history is like your roots is it's kind of like, I'll say it's important, because some people don't have the privilege of even knowing where their history. You think of children who are like an orphanage, and they're like they never had a mom or dad, so they have no idea where they came from, right?
Right.
So history does matter, like, tremendously. I'm not saying that. But in addition to history mattering, it shouldn't define, because let's take it from no, I'm gonna go with this. Never mind, because I was about to go. But I'm just saying, overall, history matters. Did we want to say stuck with certain histories? No, we didn't want that to define us.
Right.
You have to sometimes push beyond. That goes back to looking at the other two birds, right? Of saying, like, I know this is what I was presented. Mm-hmm. Right? But because I know that this just can't be it.
Right.
I'm going to fight to see what is out there, and I'm going to throw that rock and see what comes out.
Yeah, like Jenny would say. I'm thinking, like, I've seen, like, cases where an individual father just could have up and left one day.
Yeah.
When they were a small kid. Mm-hmm. And they witnessed it. One day dad was there, and he just walked out, and then they never seen dad again until they got in their 30s or 40s, and he was just a man. Mm-hmm. And then that little kid, for example's sake, that little boy grew up and had the bird in his hand that was everything.
Yeah.
And had a family, and just one day did the same thing the dad did. Loved the kids and everything. Everything was right. No problem at all. But just left. And when they asked why, the answer was, I don't know.
I can't stand that. Listen.
But the dad did it.
But listen, everyone has a why. You know why? Because, one, I don't allow my children to get away with I don't know. One, I want you to...
That's important to say.
I want you to 100% be very conscious of why you do the way you do. Even if it's not justified. Mm-hmm. You know why you did it. Your I don't know is just, I don't want to tell you why. I don't want to explain why. No.
So you think for every I don't know, you actually know why?
Oh, you know why. It may not be logical. You may be fearful and wanting to share the reason why. You may feel embarrassed because you realize it's such a selfish motivation behind it. But there's a why to everything we do. So
in Nicole's house, the word unknown is deleted from the Webster dictionary.
No, not unknown. I don't listen.
I don't know. I don't know
something, and like, even if you lie, like, kids, it's innate.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like, even you can't even teach a kid to lie, and they just
they do it effortlessly.
Why?
I think fear of, like, I'm not gonna say I think fear. When I've asked, like, well, why? Their first response is, it used to be, I don't know, but they know that I don't we're not getting away with that. No, it's like, you do know. And now there's no right or wrong to your why. There's not a right answer and a wrong answer. This is your why. Mm-hmm. Now I can coach you on why that your why is not a healthy perspective. Mm-hmm. But I'm not looking for a specific answer. So it's not a test. And that's what I tell them.
Right.
To disarm. This is not a test. And it's not even so much to disarm you because I have a trap set up. Mm-hmm. It's genuinely, there's not a test. I need to know why you're thinking the way you think. Why did you lie? And a lot of times, I didn't want you to be mad. I didn't want to get in trouble. All right, cool. Now let's deal with that. You know what is the most bravest thing? To move beyond your fear. And mm-hmm. even if you know that it was wrong for you to do, I respect you more for telling me the truth. But we're not going to get away with saying, I don't know, because you do know why. You just don't want to share it with me. Which now that goes to, what are you so fearful of? What are you hiding behind?
So what steps does one take to overcome fear? This is very, very important.
You know why? I think it's a continued practice thing. Because you may get over the hurdle of your one fear, but then there's still another fear that keeps popping up. Because I do think, which I learned in Inside Out, right? The movie. I think that to completely erase fear is reckless. Because fear makes you like pause and go like, should I? Like, let me think of like what could be the outcome.
Right.
So I don't think that one can truly conquer all their fears, because when you conquer one, there's going to be something else mm-hmm. that's going to pop up.
Right.
Which I think in life you're going to find new fears. But so what you really have to nurture is the character and knowing like, I'm going to be courageous. I'm going to move beyond my fear and not allow fear to paralyze me. And
so like, this is important to know, mm-hmm. especially for the people that's listening, because a lot of people, as you know, I talk to a lot of different people about everything. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people have generic fears about the most simplistic things that maybe you and I wouldn't necessarily have a fear about. So this dialogue, I think, would be helpful for a lot of people, because you have the techniques, mm-hmm. because you implement them all the time with yourself personally, mm-hmm. with the kids, throughout your day-to-day actions. So I think by giving somebody like action steps on how do you say sorry to somebody when you really want to say sorry, because you have a fear of
rejection.
Going to them to say sorry after you done messed up. And like you said, if it's repeated, then obviously you just said the repeated mm-hmm. sorries don't matter. But after the change behavior happens and that person wants to go say sorry, they may be fearful to come because they don't know how. Or if they're experiencing some kind of fear, they need to have some kind of action step to teach them. Or like you said, it's one of those things where it has to be trained. But the number one reason why most people don't get things done is because they don't know where to start.
Yeah, 100%.
So help them be able to start.
I can only speak,
Miss Nicole.
I can only speak from a personal experience, right? So when you're thinking of your fears, or let's say you were wrong in something mm-hmm. and needing to apologize, I honestly, if you were in my brain, right, there is so much traffic in my, it's like, but the traffic's moving like mm-hmm. in my head, right? So in the moment of me analyzing stuff, I'm already going through a situation of like, what's the worst that can happen, right? Mm-hmm. So when it comes to fear, it's like, what's the worst that can happen? Let's say if it's me, a lot, like my one child loves nature. Mm-hmm. I don't like nature.
Right.
Like, but you would never know, because everything I do is pushing beyond my fears. So I was in my greenhouse and I was talking to my plants and stuff. And there was this massive, don't judge me. I go in there and tell them,
no, I'm not.
I'm giving them good energy, okay?
The plants must be growing well.
They are, and I tell them, thank you for, like, what you're going to be supplying me with. Like, listen, it's a whole thing for me. That's what I was saying. So when I went in there one time, there was this massive spider. Mm-hmm. And the spider had the sack of...
Oh, the babies?
Yes. Oh. So it's like, okay, fear. So my one child who loves nature is like, catch it for me so I can look at it. So she can like look at it inside of it. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to kill it. So fear would have me harm something.
Right.
And all this spider is trying to do is just birth those babies, hold them on, you know, whatever. Yeah. So it's like, why would I want to, one, I don't want to kill it. I learned that from my sissy. She believes in like, why are we killing stuff? Yeah. So she's a tree hugger in my mind. So it's like, okay, I don't want to kill it, right? Mm-hmm. But my daughter wants to like look at it and like, you know, she loves learning. So it's like, okay, get me the little, you know, container. Mm-hmm. So I had to assess like, okay, what's the worst that can happen? It's not a poisonous spider. So the worst that can happen is it's going to move fast.
So you go to...
The worst that can happen is what? It's going to possibly bite me and it will hurt for a moment. It's not poisonous.
Right.
That's the worst. So why am I so fearful of the worst? And when you think about it, it's more scared of me than I am of it. Mm-hmm. So if I already said the worst what could possibly happen is not worth me not proceeding in the next steps, then why am I stopping? Because it's all now a mental thing.
Right.
And if I can get over that hurdle, and so basically I've said that story to a lot of situations for me and getting over my fears, it's what's the worst that can happen? Mm-hmm. Even if let's say I wrong somebody and I'm going to apologize and it's my fear of like, they're like, why did you do it? And it's like, you know, how do I know you really changed? And I really on the inside, I just want to say sorry and tell them like, I learned my lesson, right? You know, whatever. And it's like, but instantly I'm stopped because of pride, but because of the fear of rejection, the fear of entitlement of thinking like, I now, because I say sorry, I have to be in their lives.
Right.
I feel like, okay, the worst that can happen here is that they say, I don't want nothing to do with you. The worst that can happen.
And then what happens if that happens?
You made your bed, you gotta lay in it.
Okay, so you basically saying you suffer the consequences for
suffer the consequences. But if it's about true personal growth,
but at least you went back and tried to amend.
Yes, if it's about true personal growth, it can't be how am I going to benefit still,
right?
Because most times when it comes to situations, let's say relationships where either partner does something, you don't want to admit to it, and you two don't want to apologize because of the fear of how you're going to not benefit from it no more. Right. How it's going to affect you. Mm-hmm. It's not even factoring that person and what's the best for them because you are so paralyzed by, I don't want to admit to this. I don't want to apologize because something about my life is going to change. Mm. Then is there true growth from that situation? Did you really learn? Are you really apologetic? Because you have to be willing to say, because I made this decision, I understand that this is the repercussions.
Right.
What's the worst? And even for me, some people think death is the worst. I know where I'm going when I die. That's not the worst.
To the ground.
I'm going to heaven.
Well, yes, you're going to heaven, but you're going to the ground physically first.
That's right. After they spread my ashes.
No.
He's like, I thought we were almost there. But no, so it's like for me, when you really dissect the worst,
right,
and your whys and all of that, I feel like that can help you get past your fears. Mm-hmm. Because when you start analyzing like, oh, okay, only this can happen. So a lot of times we're even more scared of somebody else's situations and somebody else's account of how that fear took over them. Mm-hmm. So I'm responding based off of something of how it affected your life.
Right.
Why am I doing that? Because your fears aren't mine. So why am I thinking of like, oh, but you know what? I knew this one person who crossed the street and they got hit by a car. So I'm scared to ever cross the street.
Right.
That was your situation. I can't allow that to stop me from progressing forward. I don't think that's healthy. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Beyond the Grind.
Let's talk about it.